Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
All right, guys, welcome to another session of the Transform Sales Podcast review. Today we have a special guest. We have Mojan. Am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. VP of Partnerships at CoPilot AI. How's it going?
It's going well. Going well.
Awesome. Well, those that are watching today, we're going to be talking about overcoming outreach challenges on LinkedIn with CoPilot AI. But before we get to the questions that we have prepared for you, I want to know a little bit about yourself, your background, and let's talk about 2025. What does it look like? What's in the roadmap, and what you're also helping your buyers do at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, what's coming is obviously a real revolution in the way we work, right? AI is becoming a bigger part of the day-to-day. And I think there's a general consensus that it needs to be embraced or you won't be able to compete, right? We're a company that fortunately was in the AI space, well before it became a hot topic. And we've got machine learning and AI components built into our platform, which support that move, what's coming, if you will.
Awesome. And when we're talking about CoPilot AI, what is some alternatives that your customers were using before, seeing your product, demoing your product? Can you share us a little bit of background of that?
Yeah, I mean, and some of these things are still used alongside our product, but most of the people we talk to have engaged with an agency and done some SEO, some ad buying and ad kind of driven marketing, dabbled in content. Most of the people who've done anything on LinkedIn have done it manually, right? Yeah. Maybe they've bought some lists, done some cold calling, or maybe done some email blasting and campaigns, but the considered alternatives are usually, when it comes to LinkedIn, it is just grinding it out.
Got it. And what were some challenges that your customers were running into with those alternatives that your software kind of helped them overcome?
I mean, most of the time, especially when you've done it and you know it works, it's the time. Doing it well, doing it right, creating lists, reaching out every day, and then doing the follow-up and the many touches of follow-up that needs to be done to get good results on LinkedIn. It's repetitious and very time intensive. Quality control is also a big one. A lot of people struggle with alternatives, and even on LinkedIn, not knowing how to do targeting and finding kind of the ideal decision makers. Another piece I have definitely heard as a regular theme is how do you specialize and differentiate to cut through the noise? LinkedIn, as of January, is up to 1 billion plus users. So it's become a noisy space. And if you want to get people's attention, you can't be a jack of all trades appealing to anyone and everyone, because that doesn't work anymore.
No, one of the challenges that I see myself as a power user of LinkedIn, when I used to use a lot of things manually, is I will find it very difficult to follow up with prospects, right? Those messages start stacking up. So now you will have to start certain messages so that they can pop off from the rest of the other messages that are out there, right? And it just gets like this workaround, try to get back to that person you're having the conversation, keeping up to the content they're publishing. So it gets very difficult once you have so many conversations on LinkedIn, right?
It's really, everyone knows that businesses have to figure out scalable approaches, and LinkedIn becomes less scalable the more you use it. So it's definitely a difficult piece. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I do want to demo like those key features that your software kind of help those users overcome. If I could go ahead and share my screen, you could kind of walk us through the presentation that you have for us.
And we can show off the tool, show a bit of a walkthrough and some slides. Let's do it.
Awesome. Right.
All right. So jumping in, we obviously work in that world of 1 billion people. But first out of the gates, I'll just say it, there's a prerequisite to working with CoPilot. And that is you need to buy a license level from LinkedIn that lets you do very advanced targeting. Now, we show people how to leverage it so they actually get benefit from it. But LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a prerequisite. And the goal here is to use the tool to target your ideal decision makers in a way that makes sense for you. Whether or not you're doing alumni outreach, reach out to people who are now business owners who used to go to the same university as, or looking for commonality in things like maybe it's recently joining a large corporation near you and you want to do business with those executives. There's lots of ways to slice the data. We help people figure that out and validate the audiences for their kind of ideal customer profile. But this is done on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, typically on the core version. So starting there, we want to build an audience. But the key here is understanding how to carve it up, how to clean it up, exclusions so you're not hitting the people you don't want to speak with, right? And then how to streamline the work, right? So from lead filtering, we have a tool that actually takes the list, looks at your profile and the recipients in that list, and scores the likelihood of them engaging with you in 13 weighted factors. This tends to get a very much improved connection rate out of the gate. From there, we are going to work with you to craft, following best practices, good messaging that's specific to that audience, that cuts through the noise. From there, of course, you're going to have an inbox full of conversations. And we have guidance on how to communicate with these people to get you to a meeting, right? As well as what are the communication styles on the other side? Who are these people? So you can be set up for success and go in with some insights into the personalities you're about to engage with and set a good first impression, right? So first off, again, lead filtering, then some personality insights, again, AI tools built in, and the message generator, which is ultimately taking your intent of getting a meeting with someone and taking account of what they've said to craft an appropriate message without you spending a lot of time going back and forth, looking at their profile, thinking about it. You can kind of just get something knocked out that does the job, gets the conversation started. And the goal here is getting meetings, right?
I have a question for you. When you say cut through the noise, are you referring more, let's speak on the buyer's pain, let's not do the feature war, right? Educating the buyer, right? A lot of buyers come very informed, right? So how can you really cut through the noise nowadays, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. It depends on what your objective is. We have users that use this for recruiting, but the predominant use case is business development. So in the case of business development, sharing an industry trend, something that stands out, getting someone's attention, citing specifics about the person you're reaching out to. Another really good way to cut through the noise. So it doesn't feel like the message was written for 400 people, but written for the recipient. And there are ways to do that at scale. So yeah, it might be a unique value prop and highlighting it to the right people. But there's a lot of ways to go at it, and it is unique to the individual. So just sharing the best practices and doing this, many times people have a real aha moment. Yeah. And then, of course, I do want to highlight that the best practice is to follow the guidance of LinkedIn. But it doesn't mean doing it manually works well. I've done it pre-CoPilot back in the SAP days, and it is a lot of time, right? And there's about 400 invites that you can send per message or per month per profile on LinkedIn. That's the guidance they provided. But if you do it manually, it's not too hard to send out. Like you mentioned, you've done this, Dave. You can send the messages every day. You can look at who were connected and send a follow-up. But finding those people who didn't respond to your follow-up and following up again, it starts to compound. Every day you're doing the new messages, send your follow-ups, and then trying to get 4 or 5 touches is really a best practice on LinkedIn. You don't have to go as far as email. It doesn't need to be 10 plus. But to do that at scale is tremendously difficult, and most people drop the ball. And most responses, we've seen the stats, come on the 3rd or 4th message, which doesn't typically happen if you're doing it manually. So you'll see not only is there more time spent doing it manually, the results are just less, right?
No, and if you're doing it manually, that there's no way for you to track which specific touch point is the one that generated the most engagement, right? So I feel like having a system like this, you actually know where in that portion of the sequence you're actually hitting it in terms of relevance, right?
Absolutely. And the other piece is you can run 2 different strategies. Maybe it's different messaging, maybe it's different audiences. But you can run strategies side by side, splitting your invites out. And the goal there is, of course, to figure out what works really well for you, validate it, and then double down, right? And that's also something that's really difficult to do without a tool. Simple as that, right? In the time we've been doing this, generated more than 20 million connections in the world of LinkedIn. Average connection rates, especially since the reply prediction, are usually 20% plus, right? So if you say 400 invites a month, it's not unusual for people to get 100 targeted decision makers joining their network every single month. Following best practices, it's really common. You get 25, 30, I mean, I've seen as high as 50 of them, 50% responding. Now you're going to qualify a lot of those out, but the goal is to move people to a meeting, right? And again, we're top of funnel. Whether or not someone can close on a meeting or get the meeting to happen in an effective way, we can't control for that, but what we can do is stack the odds on getting just more new leads into the opportunities funnel. And I mean, again, you want to track analytics. You carve that out really well, right? Hey, is my connection rate better or worse since I changed the message I'm using to connect with this audience?
Exactly.
Right, and that usually is a gut feel for most people at best, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you have a team of users, I mean, we have lots of sales teams and SDR teams using this. You can actually look at, hey, give some people some free reign, let them experiment. But then when we see what's working, let's double down, right? Maybe they're vertical or geo separated. That's all fine. But we can look at what are the trends and what's working right now. Right? And in every industry, there's different trends at different times. So again, there's also deduplication feature. So many firms have come to us saying, hey, we really don't want our team members seeing the same people, or they don't want to hit them in a similar time frame. They want to be, you can hit them after it's been a month. Well, we built a tool for that very reason. And for teams, they actually go through an implementation with a dedicated account manager. They actually have someone working with them and supporting them on the technical side throughout the engagement. And as a result, we tend to see our teams grow, which is great. Adoption tends to grow.
Yeah. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? So that means that I can go ahead and reach out to a group of buyers and the messages won't overlap, right?
Yeah. So if I have like 5 sales reps and we've had them each load up a list, if someone has collected someone, the other person won't be able to collect them until X time has passed, if you configure that.
Got it.
And of course, because you want to track all of this, you can set up a trigger for maybe it's on new lead connection or reply, or better yet, on meeting book. You click the button, pushes that person upon meeting book to the CRM, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
are you a kind of person that suggests multi-threading whenever you're doing prospecting?
I find it helps, but I will say LinkedIn, there's no gatekeeper, there's no spam filter. It just works better than everything else.
Yeah, that makes
We've
sense.
experimented with different touches, but the truth is, originating conversations to date, I have not seen something that compares at all, right? We do have a lot of users who will, once they're in engaged conversations, they'll shoot someone an email, give them a phone call. As you connect with someone, most of the time that frees up and gives you access to their contact information. You see it right in platform. So many people will choose to move it to CRM and work that person in a multi-threaded way. But the unified feedback we get is that the LinkedIn origination is by far the most effective.
Yeah. No, and at the end of the day, people buy from people, right? So that's the closest one to that, right?
It tends to be just, you got to go where they're at, and people are spending the time on LinkedIn. And with the amount of robocalling and email spam, it still works on LinkedIn. Will it forever? Hard to say, but right now the quality is still solid, right? And a lot of people ask, like, hey, with COVID, we saw just a lot more noise, but we also saw a lot more people accept the idea of doing business originated from LinkedIn. So believe it or not, it actually has gotten more effective even with the increased amount of volume. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome.
Well, again, funnels and insights around team performance, wonderful stuff to have. CRM tracking for interactions, so forth. I won't go into the pricing variants right now. Again, that's all on the website, all very visible. But in the actual platform, just simply, you get in here and you can actually start to see, hey, what is my team doing? And again, I just set up a demo site, so I'm not showing any sensitive data. Basically, in this platform, you're able to track from an individual perspective or individual campaign or aggregate of the team. And just because people ask, if you happen to have a bunch of executives with really appealing profiles, but they have no time, really common scenario, have those profiles used by an AE or an SDR, and they can manage the inbox on their behalf without giving up access to your entire LinkedIn profile and all of the privacy that goes with it. So the tool is designed for that. I mean, we ourselves, I had my executive profile, the CEO's 26 profiles managed by a single sales rep in our team, doing outreach, managing the inbox on behalf of us in an aggregate inbox so it can be done efficiently, and getting the most out of those titles. And it's a very unique way to go. It works crazy well. And then, of course, we just have to make sure the message isn't bait and switch. You're saying, hey, I'd love you to talk to my team, a member of my team, right? So it's a bit of a unique play because a lot of people have their executive assistant managing this on their behalf as well.
Got it. I have 2 questions for you. One is, do you suggest your buyers, like, for example, taking the time to also invest in their profile, for example, creating their profile as a landing page so that whenever you're doing content plus the outreach, it kind of complements, right? Because sometimes you can do the initial outreach, but then your profile finishes off, the rest of the context that I need for me to book, right? Is that something
Absolutely.
you suggest?
Well, I mean, I would say tailoring your profile, if you're doing a niche outreach, doesn't mean you can only work with that niche. But if you tailor your profile, look like you are very specialized in your description, your title for that outreach, you'll get a better reception. If they see content that's thematic, obviously relevant, that's going to make it look like you're more of an authority in the space. And of course, when they connect with you, they now automatically see your feed when you share content. So maybe if the timing wasn't right, they didn't engage, you have stayed top of mind. Great. They might engage with that down the road. In addition, and I didn't get into this yet, but we also have nurturing campaigns. So this is for taking those people you've connected with, maybe with our platform or previously, and moving them into a drip. No gatekeeper, no spam filter. How do you stay top of mind? I mean, buying cycles come down to budget and priority. And same thing with recruiting. Something happens, triggers you to think about it. You now consider a change. So connecting with someone, having good conversations, wonderful. But if timing isn't right, how do you stay top of mind? This is a really powerful tool. You need to respect that you don't want to spam people with it, but you can send quarterlies, monthlies out in this tool as well. So the content complements that. It all starts to marry up and work really, really well.
And the last question that I had related to this topic is, do you guys also use in-mails? And also, what is your take on in-mails?
Well, I mean, I've seen the numbers. We do offer an in-mail solution, and I do encourage people to use it, but connections that kind of handshake first are definitely superior for engagement. However, in addition to the 400 invites you can do with LinkedIn, we focus in on the open in-mail part, so there's no credits needed, but you can do an additional 800 open in-mail pending the audience you reach out to has open profiles. So it's kind of a neat thing that LinkedIn's created. If I am on a paid premium version of LinkedIn, so are my recipients, the audience, and we both say we're open to be communicated with, you can freely message people. Now, you can't continue to message them unless they engage. However, it's just more volume. So for those who want to turn up some additional volume, we do see it work, just not at the same rate of connecting first, because again, that buy-in or opt-in is generally going to have a higher outcome. So it's just another additional piece I definitely encourage people to look at.
Awesome, cool. Anything else you'd like to share with us during this demo presentation? Because I might have some questions along the way, but this looks very interesting, right?
Well, we'll keep it quick. I mean, the fundamentals are you connect your LinkedIn profile to our platform, you upload an audience, which you create in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And I think, honestly, for a lot of people, this is the most interesting piece because it's not even us, this is LinkedIn. But knowing what you can do to carve up an audience is incredible. Usually it's a very simple flow, and I'm going to go through it in 1 minute here. You think, okay, I want to reach out to people in the United States, and I'm okay to do nationwide. So you grab a geography. From there, I love doing business with small business owners, but not too small. I'm going to look at people who are maybe 10 to 50 headcount. Now, what you can start doing is slicing and dicing the world of LinkedIn. So how many 10 to 50 headcount employees exist on LinkedIn? I haven't targeted owners yet, 16 million. How many of them are owners of a business, right? And this is how I love people to think. It's like, if you look at, okay, seniority, let's look at the owners and partners. Of the 16 million people in the United States in the kind of 10 to 50 person business world, there's 920,000 owners. Now you want to narrow it down further. Let's maybe target by industry or narrower geography or sub-industry. Have they been active on LinkedIn? So you can start to really slice it down so your messaging can be specific. Often we'll get down to a list of a couple thousand people. And that means you can run it for 5-6 months and then you go to the next one. But the goal here is to narrow it down to a point where you have something specific to the recipient in your messaging to get their attention.
100%.
Right?
For example, two of the ones that has worked very well for me is they're active in LinkedIn, that most likely they're engaged, they're using their LinkedIn daily, and also if they're following a competitor so that you can promote your offer, right? Being a little bit more compelling, less price, a lot easier, right?
Yeah. Well, or they're a new owner. Maybe they recently changed position. Right? There's a lot of different ways to slice it up. And I think one of the best parts is you don't think of it just like, are these the people I want? You want to get to a point where page 1, page 5, page 10, 80% of those people on each page you want to speak with for your business. But a lot of that comes down to, how do you clean up a list? That's something that a lot of people don't think about. It's like, okay, I want owners, but I can tell you right now, when I do an owner search, oftentimes I get a lot of people who are board members. They're not really who I want to talk to in this scenario. So you can start to build out some exclusions, right? And this is a native feature here. So just click exclude on board member. And all of a sudden, of those 82,000 people we just had, we knocked out 22,000, right? This is the exercise you go through to get it down to a point where, like, these people, you can not only write a message that's going to really resonate with them, it's very specific to them, but you're getting rid of the people who would be a waste of your time. Because if someone uses our tool and they get an inbox full of responses, but the majority of the people aren't who they want and they're spending time, the experience isn't good. Simple as that, right? Now you take this list, once you've got it down to that point you like, and you drop it into our platform, right? So you go to your campaign and you load it into a search list. And this is a new demo site. You load up your team members, you create your search list, you create your sequence of messages, and then you turn on the campaign and it starts to run. And it starts to get results within usually a few days. But in loading up a search list, you can pick which member you want to load it for. So maybe it's David, and you pop in that URL, and then it starts to pull them in. Right. And then it's going to run a scoring. And like this one is only got 3 left. It's basically an exhausted list, needs to be refreshed. But you see once they load in, the likelihood of engaging with those people in that list. And it's going to reorder them so people with the highest percentile go to the top.
Oh, wow. Wow, nice. Yeah.
And it's things like, hey, do we have common industry experience? Do we have interests in common? Do we know some people in common? Scoring and weighing those things to just get the initial engagement to a higher point. And once you have that compounding momentum of, hey, every time I reach out to someone, we have 20 people in common, we don't need this stuff as much. But out of the gates, many people really benefit from this scoring mechanism. But what it really comes down to is once it's all set up, it's writing messages. And I'm showing you generic examples because obviously it's a demo, but I really encourage specificity. You want to invite someone to connect, and you're not trying to sell them. You're trying to just get a connection. People really don't understand, like once you're connected, now you can freely message. How do you get a compelling message that people will engage with? Well, there's lots of tricks to it, but this is a very generic example for the safety of the demo, but there's lots of ways to cut through the noise. But here you send it, but then you want to automate waiting maybe a day or a couple hours after they connect. So it doesn't look like you're harassing them. You don't want to jump on them the second they connect with you, but sending only during business hours and sending a message that asks a question, has some specificity in it, call to action, something of an industry POV. And then the truth is most responses don't come here. They come on the spot, the step you wouldn't do if you did it manually. And my preference, I should do a really concise message. Hey, Dave, just want to follow up my last note. Not sure if you had time to see it. Love to chat. What that does is human, it's engaging. It prompts them to look at the previous message. This is like a text message. It's threaded. This is not an email. Don't say salutations, Mo.
Yes,
right?
yes, 100%. Yeah, because sometimes, and I've seen that happen to me, right? It's like, what if the person doesn't respond, right? And the moment that they do take the time, you want to make sure that it all reads in a way that it connects with each other's point, right? So that it's easier to digest, right?
If you ask for a call every single message, you look foolish. It doesn't work. And once it's all set up, though, the goal is you're only coming in here 10 minutes twice a day to respond in the morning and afternoon to newly engaged decision makers who are chatting with you. So it's automatically following up with them until they respond. Then it stops. They pop in here and you're spending your time. Again, there's lots of guides and walkthroughs in the platform, as you can see. You're spending your time chatting with people who are engaged. So if I click into one of these people chatting with me, you can see the entire conversation thread back and forth so far. And then in here, say if someone wants to engage, speak with you, you can have a tool help you write a message with the objective of, say, scheduling a meeting or providing times. Helps write out the message. You decide if you like it, you hit send. Great. You can have click and send templates. You save. You can even schedule a message to go out if someone says, hey, it's Thanksgiving. I'm going to be back in a week. Let's chat then. Commonplace. You can just schedule to go out in a week, right now. And you don't have to worry about putting a calendar reminder in, going and finding the conversation, writing it then and there. But one of my favorite tools is I can scan. If I'm about to have a call with someone, I want to know who the person on the other side is. I can click a button. It scans the profile and tells me the communication style of the recipient, giving me the ability to avoid saying and doing things that they may not like, and having me, enabling me to set a good first impression. The goal here is just to have more good meetings, and that's what we're looking to enable. So we're always building more tools to support this. And we've got some really cool stuff in the pipes for Q4, Q1 coming here as well. But yeah, I mean, that's the high level overview. I don't want to go too deep into it. We can spend all day in the tool, but realistically, what we're looking to do is get people connected with the right audience into good conversations. So they spend their time not on assessing who to reach out to and how, but on having the conversations and moving them to meaningful meetings, right? And if you can do that at scale, at the end of the year, you've done more business. Simple as that.
100%. So one of the questions that I'd like to ask regarding this is, what is the task, deliverables, and people involved in setting up this use case, right? And how
Yeah.
long would it
So,
typically take to reach full productivity?
I mean, the deliverable is top of funnel. It's more leads, more conversations, more opportunities. Obviously, if people are good at moving those along and their sales cycle, I mean, most of the people we work with are B2B, high ticket, relationship based sellers. So they have longer sales cycles. So eventually, yeah, you're going to get sales and ROI, but what you need to measure is, am I getting more new quality opportunities, conversations, and meetings than I was previously? And that is what you need to measure for a top of funnel MarTech strategy like this. Now, when it comes to um, kind of like what's involved, setting it up, it's really, I don't want to make it sound too simple, but it isn't a huge endeavor. Typically, if it's a team coming on board, they're going to have an implementation kickoff session with our account management team. We'll work with one of their primary admins, showing them how to set up the users, create campaigns, the resources, best practices, give them access to our help and support portal. Lots of resources there, and just show them the technical setup, which is mostly product guided. But from there, we then have check-ins, because it is very meaningful to understand how to maximize the use of the tool once you have messages in your inbox. If you talk about it theoretically before they're there, it's not quite the same. So they'll actually have a couple of check-ins as well, but typically you're off to the races. You can launch your user campaigns within that first meeting, and you're going to start seeing them work right out of the gates. But I will say, to really ramp a campaign, ramp a strategy, 3 to 4 weeks is usually when they start to get more momentum and get ramped to full capacity, getting those connection rates, response rates we're talking about. And if you're doing experimentation and testing, of course, that means more time, but it means higher output. So it doesn't take a long time to get rolling, but optimization can take some time for sure.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. And one of the questions that's super demanded by our audience is, when it comes to support channels, what tends to be your top performing channel, fastest reply? Is it chat?
Yeah, so we have a very, very fast time to reply in chat, because the team is on standby to answer questions, shoot resources over, so forth. But if it's a team engagement, you're working with us in a team's account, the account management team is going to be there for the deeper stuff, right?
Okay.
And we also have, like I said, a lot of resource available. So you don't have to wait. You can find the answers you need really quite quickly.
Perfect. And what does pricing kind of looks like? What are the tiers that you have available if I decide to purchase a product? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. It is pretty straightforward here. So as far as pricing goes, we have a few offerings. The standard offering, if you're just an individual coming to us, is, again, it's going to be a standard or scale, which means multi-campaign for testing, or just singular campaign of nurture and one of outreach. We can do term. If you do a prepaid term, there's some discounting involved for 6 to 12 months. You can also go month to month. And we have the team's engagement. So team means a minimum of 5 users, but the price per user is significantly less. But we liaise primarily with that central administrator to give us the economies of scale to be able to offer that heavily discounted pricing. We do also have a premium managed service. So under the brand of CoPilot, a fully done for you solution. So you just get meetings in your calendar, and we would work with you to get things configured and collect feedback. But it is for those who don't want to scale headcount and hire sales, but they really want more top of funnel business, and they're just offering like passing off the work to an organization like ours, right? So there's kind of a few pieces, but most people opt for either the scale or the team engagement. And we even have a POC offering right now for teams, but ultimately the start point for teams is typically $1,000 a month for 5 licenses. And of course, prepay gives you some economies of scale there as well. And we have tiering as well for more users. So there's thresholds which lower the price per user once you get to a larger user count. Some of our largest teams being 50, 100 users.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And the last question that I wanted to ask is, what KPI should your ideal customer use to evaluate their success with this tool for this specific use case, and what quantifiable outcome can they expect?
Yeah, I mean, top of funnel is really where you want to look. So sales qualified leads is typically the KPI that people are looking at. New meetings and demos, if you're going to get a little bit deeper into it. Obviously, this is typically an audience that's been very much targeted by sales, and conversations started by sales. So they tend to skip right past the MQL to SQL. And new ops is another metric that some people use, because of course, when you're teeing up that meeting. It's usually when you pipe an opportunity. And again, if you have that CRM integration set up, that can even be automated. That would be the top of funnel options. It really comes down to the organization, of course.
100%. Awesome. Is there anything else that you wish to share with the audience? I feel like we covered the few points that we wanted to touch base on.
I mean, I think the big takeaway here is if you're not doing some really direct outreach on LinkedIn, there is a huge opportunity. And in the 8 years I've been working with CoPilot and doing this, it's gotten to be a much bigger audience. I mean, LinkedIn's 4x the user base, and it's also gotten to be a more acceptable medium to do business, right? So it's gotten better, not worse, but you cannot go at it the same way you used to. There's been evolution in the space, and the bar is set higher in differentiation. It's not about saying I'm better. No one believes you. It's a noisy world out there. It's how are you different? How are you interesting to me? And if you can target a narrow enough audience and have a message that aligns, you will cut through the noise. You will get engagement, and you will get more business out of it. And if you lean into tools to streamline and scale things, of course, that's a multiplier. And that's where we come in.
No, 100%. And knowing, for example, where companies that are also in SaaS doing outreach, I saw a report from Demand 2024 from the owner of G2 that said that 19,000 software companies joined their marketplace. So taking into account how you can differentiate yourself and using a tool at scale, I feel like there's a good leverage, but you need to stand out for the noise.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an exciting time because there is more business to be done. And new entrants is just validation, but you have to stay ahead of it, right? You have to be doing more, trying more, experimenting, and mediums and channels like LinkedIn should not be neglected. But again, most people don't even know about this as an option, right? And the challenge is if you're comparing it to manual, even if you started to work, it's just so time intensive. A lot of people rule out the idea of direct engagement outreach on LinkedIn because of the time requirement.
100%.
So we exist for that very reason.
Awesome. Well, this was a great section of the Transform Sales podcast, so software review. For those that are watching, are you looking to overcome outreach challenges using your LinkedIn and using CoPilot as your ally? This will be a great opportunity. You have the VP of Partnerships here to support you with his great team. Any questions that you may have, we will leave the description on the link below. So if you want to give it a try, it's a perfect moment.
All right.
Awesome.
Appreciate the time, Dave.
Thank you for your time.
Take care.